Welcome to your Business Disaster Preparedness Workshop. Probably not one of the most exciting or sexiest topics that you might want to address, and perhaps because of that, you're not. But with this workshop, you should find it easier to create your disaster preparedness plan and possibly make it a little more fun. The goals for the course are to establish a sound disaster plan, one that you can actually implement, practice, and then update on a yearly basis. You'll have an opportunity to review best practices that will ensure continuity for your business, safety for your employees, and possibly other stakeholders involved in the disaster, and that you'll be able to better manage the resources during the disaster and after the disaster. You will, in fact, be in the process of securing a better future for your business, and you'll be examining and identifying the various issues in case of a disaster. You'll have a business disaster plan and survival guide that you can successfully implement. You'll be improving teamwork as you work through this because you'll be bringing people together to work on this. You'll learn about some other resources, and then you'll be able to create your plan on your own or with our help. And we'll be encouraging you to become a leader in your business and in your community to help others, your family, your employees' families, to be prepared for disasters as well. The authors of this material are Jerry Denniston, Gary Rossi, and Eric Denniston. And a little bit about Denner Group International. Our consulting firm was founded in 1984. My name is Eric Denniston. I am the managing director. I've been engaged in various aspects of business planning and creating strategic and business plans for over 30 years. My partner is Jerry Denniston, who's our chief marketing strategist, who has a long career in marketing and is applying those skills to strategic planning and incorporating that also with social media marketing. The agenda for the course is we'll start with an overview, then we'll talk a little bit about planning, then we'll talk about the 3 key steps for creating the plan, then we'll talk a little bit about what the costs are in creating the plan. We'll talk a little bit about actually making the plan itself. We'll talk about the importance of communicating with your people, meaning your employees in particular, but also with people outside your organization. You may want to be talking to possibly other tenants in your building and other neighbors in the area, or perhaps first responders. We'll talk a little bit about how you can more significantly protect your investment in your business. And then we will also talk about some other resources that you can access to enhance your planning for disaster. So first, the overview. This is all based on a proven framework that answers the next 5 questions. First, where do we want to be in the event of an emergency or disaster? Now, this question is really focused on getting you to think carefully and deeply about what are you going to be doing during a disaster, and what are your people going to be doing, how are they going to be reacting, and then what do you want your business to be doing immediately after the disaster so that you're actually focused on planning on how you're going to be already in recovery mode immediately after the disaster and staying in business. Second question, how are you going to evaluate that everything is working successfully? And this is really talking about how you're going to ensure that your disaster plan is complete and then that it's being practiced. And by practice, we'll talk about this in a little more detail later, but we're actually talking about doing drills. The third question, do we currently have the right structures and teams in place? What you're probably going to find is you're going to have to make some adjustments in your organization, particularly if it's a larger organization, in terms of who you assign certain tasks that they are going to be responsible for during a disaster and then after a disaster in order to recover from it. The fourth question is, what key initiatives do we need in order to ensure that we have a successful plan? Lastly, what will be changing in the future environment of the organization that may affect our plan? And here we'll be talking about things such as, what if we're planning on really high growth for our organization and we're going to be adding a lot of employees? What do we need to have in place to make sure that those people are being brought on board with the disaster planning process and that they know what their roles are should something like that occur? Or what if we're planning in the interim of another 2 or 3 years to change our location? How is that going to affect our disaster plan? And incorporate that into creating this plan now as to what you would need to be prepared for. You have some support materials for this. One of them is a 4-page article about the course. Another is a self-assessment tool, and I'll make some suggestions on how you can use that right away. And lastly, a document template in Microsoft Word that you'll be able to follow and fill in, but that will be available to you at the very end of this course. So here's an exercise for you. Make sure you read the 4-page article about the course, primarily because I think it'll help you get into a mindset that will be better focused for working on what that future looks like in the case of some sort of an emergency or disaster. Then, with the self-assessment tool, make 2 copies of it. Fill one out now so that you can have a benchmark of where you stand currently relative to being prepared for a disaster. And then keep the other one for after you have finished writing up and completed and formally adopted your disaster preparedness plan, so you can see what kind of progress you've made. And then keep using the tool year after year, every year when you do an annual review and update of your disaster preparedness plan. So once you have done this, please come back and continue with Module 2.